of the family, the uncles and aunts, the cousins and nephews. And in this way, we used to have actually quite a strong coherence in the family itself, the extended family, which then has overlapping families of other cousins, which then together form the village, the tribe, the surrounding community, which up to a few generations ago was still the norm and the standard on the planet for human beings. But over the last decades in the Western societies, but also in developing countries, we find more and more a falling apart of this generational coherence of the family, the clan, and the tribe. One of the main reasons for that is the mobility.
Action!
Your network is your strength. Nurture it. Nurture your network to be strong, to be supported, especially in difficult times. This is the key that we have a network to fall back to, some safety net, a possibility to get support from the people in our surroundings. This is, in a way, our insurance policy, our best way in challenging times to be not left alone, to not be isolated and, in a way, confronted with the harshness of the lonely confrontations that life can challenge us with. If we have a strong network, we can rely on other people's help and support. If we have strong friendships, brotherhood, sisterhood, if we have a family which we can rely upon, if we have a neighborhood, a surrounding subculture, or even a broader community which carries us through those challenging moments, we have, in a way, the best insurance policy. Hopefully, more reliable than any formal corporate insurance. So, humanity thrives in community. The tribe has been at the core, at the center of the human mission, not only for centuries and millennia, but for tens of thousands of years. So, yes, it's the small family unit, mother, father, kids. But then, of course, it goes into three, maybe even four generations with grandparents or even great grandparents. And of course, out of that, then comes side arms of the family, the uncles and aunts, the cousins and nephews. And in this way, we used to have actually quite a strong coherence in the family itself, the extended family, which then has overlapping families of other cousins, which then together form the village, the tribe, the surrounding community, which up to a few generations ago was still the norm and the standard on the planet for human beings. But over the last decades in the Western societies, but also in developing countries, we find more and more a falling apart of this generational coherence of the family, the clan, and the tribe. One of the main reasons for that is the mobility. Modern transport allows for more movement, commuting, and even changing locations altogether within the same country, moving from the rural countryside area towards the urban city centers, frequently in pursuit of work, opportunity, possibility, career, or just open minded subcultures with more possibilities to unfold. So it's a common theme in Western countries, but also in developing countries, that people are leaving the villages, small towns, rural areas, and are moving into urban city centers. But frequently, they leave their family network behind. And I remember actually when in late teenage times, I moved back then with Kirsten from the rural area myself, from the south of Germany, border to Switzerland, Austria, beautiful touristy landscapes, but kind of boring for a late teenager. In search for the new discovery, we moved to the German capital, Berlin. And for Kirsten, it was actually clear either we move to Berlin or to Hamburg, which is kind of like second best choice in Germany. And if it's not that, there's only London or Paris. I tried to convince her of Cologne, Munich, or other cities. No, too small. So the real big opportunity. And in your country, these are your favorite centers. Oh, depending. People in the US move to New York City or go west. The, in a way, American dream is almost most alive in California, LA, Santa Barbara, San Francisco. Uh, The the dream of the new career, the fulfillment, the possibility, the opportunity. So normal for young people in Western countries to move to the cities. But I remember also living in various Latin American countries, for example, Peru, where there was also a strong movement out of the Andean mountains and rural areas to the capital there, Lima. So the urban centers growing and exploding with challenges there. I remember when I moved to Berlin, lots of challenges there, lots of isolation actually, not knowing anybody. Coming out of the protected surroundings where for years and decades we know our friends and family have a network there, and suddenly we're thrown into a new surrounding. There can be many reasons for that. Studying in university in this or that city where there's a special offer in some college here or there. Can be family reasons, falling in love with somebody, moving somewhere, a job opportunity, being mobile and moving for the career opportunity to another place. So many circumstances which trigger these movements. And it almost became the norm in modern society. But with that, also increase of isolation. Because the more regularly we change places, the more we start from scratch. And yes, for some personalities, that's easier because they are more on the extrovert typology. They have an easier time with reaching out, connecting, meeting new people, just with some hobby or some passion, some network, subculture, meeting new friends, colleagues at the workplace, fellow students in college, university. Such surroundings can make it easier to meet new people. But depending on what you do, whatever, a mother with kids in a new place, okay, maybe can connect via other parents in the neighborhood, fellow mothers in the kindergarten or school, okay, sure. Meeting somebody at the doctor, sure. Yet the tendency is that we are, of course, busy with our own work, commuting from here to there, activism with this and that, and then isolation with digital devices. Okay, I sit regularly next to people in the subway or bus, but I don't really talk to them. So it's a lot of this narrow horizon isolation in cities is very common. Loneliness in cities is very widespread. It's a bit similar to social media, where also the promise is that it connects us to all those hundreds and thousands of people. We have so many likes and friends and followers, but barely any deep friendships. And in a way, in a city, it's a similar situation. We live in a big city with so many people, should be even more a possibility to connect to more people than in a small town or village, more possibility, but frequently it doesn't play out like this. Frequently, it is confrontation with isolation and loneliness. I remember, especially also in the winter times where it's anyhow difficult to go out. When we lived there in Berlin, we were smoking weed and getting even more lazy, staying at home. And then didn't know many friends actually, didn't know many people, barely had any friends. So family is far away, and then we fall sick. Who accompanies us to the hospital, follows up, which friends will visit us? We just know one, two, three people. They're busy with their own lives. And various versions of these anecdotes in your life circumstances. And we notice with more and more experience and confrontation with that isolation that yes, there are benefits of this new opportunity, new surroundings, but this isolation also brings challenges, especially in hard times. And especially over the last years, as we have been confronted with more and more challenging times, the lockdowns of the COVID era, where in a way the isolation was enforced by regulation. Many people had a very tangible experience how problematic isolation can be when we're thrown back into our really tiny microcosm. If there's not even the synergy of, organizations, institutions, where parents couldn't even send their kids to kindergarten school anymore. Childcare was thrown back to the parents at home, while at the same time needing to do remote work in the home office. Challenging times. For me, always brings so much compassion when I just contemplate the severeness of the challenge. A single mom with two, three kids who cannot go to kindergarten and school anymore. She's now supposed to do home office while the kids are also at home, not only playing computer games and going crazy, but just jumping on top of each other. She's supposed to cover the education. How is that even possible during lockdown periods? No surprise that mental health has become a huge challenge in modern society and amplified through such lockdown periods. In the good old days, which had their own problems and challenges without idealizing them, but in the context of the extended family, as I described it initially, of the clan, the tribe, the village, of course, we can help each other out. The kids of my aunt are already older and require less care, so I can give my kids to the aunt if I have a challenging time and I get sick at the same challenging period. And that, of course, goes together with the cross generational care, kids caring for their parents when they get older and sick. Now it needs to be covered by institutions. That costs a lot of money. What if the money isn't there? So we could talk much more about the problem and the challenge of isolation, but I guess I hit more than enough headlines and subheadings, anecdotal examples, which make this problematic scenario relatable. So, back to the initial opening statement. Your network is your strength. Nurture it. Nourish and nurture your extended friends circle, your acquaintances, your colleagues, your relatives, generally speaking, your network. We get strength from that. And because this network can help us, especially in challenging times, so much, it is wise to, in the good days, nurture it and give back before we need to ask. So we're not even giving back, but the attitude, the recommendation is to give without expecting. Come to a new circle of people and just show up with that attitude of giving. Just be available to be of service. Giving without expecting anything in return. That is unconditional love. This selfless service, which just provides to others for the joy and beauty of giving. which the ego doesn't really understand, because the ego would be like, I'm giving away my time, my resources. It's very costly and expensive. I'm losing here. It's only going out of my account. My time is so limited. And now I should spend 1.5 hours to help out somebody, whatever, moving their apartment, carrying boxes, or doing whatnot. So the ego worries, I'm losing here. But experience shows that we are not losing. Naturally in life, there's a certain reciprocity, a giving and receiving. It's the circle of life, the beauty of family and community, that we are here for each other. And somehow, in the grand scheme of things, the grand total bottom line equation, it always balances out. And it's frequently not that linear. No, I'm in a network of a few friends. One person needs a lot of help because of some life challenges, circumstances. And whatever, I'm giving a lot to that person. And that person never really gets around to give me back, to pay me back with another service. And before you know it, that person, whatever, moves cities, country, disappears, we lose contact, never paid me back. Sucks. Kind of like I gave all my support, now the guy disappears, so I lost. Yes and no. Life, in a way, has this intuitive, organic way of counterbalancing. Somehow, life will support us when we are in need. I don't want to say because, but somehow there's a connection because we showed up in the past for other people. We will not be left alone when we are in need. Somebody else might have noticed, like, wow, you've been supporting this guy a few years ago so massively. It was so inspiring for me how you just went out of your way and you were just available, being of service to somebody in need. It truly inspires me. So then I just intuitively feel inclined to also give you back now and support you while you are in need. So it's not always so linear and a one-to-one, an eye for an eye in the positive sense, giving back. It's more an organic synergy, an intuitive flow where somehow life cares for life. It's a wonderful poem by a Christian mystic in the medieval times who was speaking like the sun to the plants, where the eternally shining, everlasting sun was giving trust and courage to the plants, to the flowers in the field, that they don't need to worry, that because the sun is doing everything it can to support and nurture and nourish. The sun is even co-responsible for the rain, of course. Just a metaphoric way of this, in a way, uplifting synergy of nature, of systems, of organisms and community to somehow come back to balance, nurture, and revitalize, charge, nourish in that collective. Of course, we could speak about also the degenerating processes of things falling apart and so on, sure. But there is inevitably an obvious force of mutual upliftment, of synergy, of together we are stronger. And even if together we get weak, then somehow some external force comes to uplift us. And it's not always so linear and obvious, and there can be extended periods of weeks, months, years where life seems to be against us. But only seemingly. It matters also of what we put our attention on. Because the mind is primed to focus on dangers, on problems. It's an evolutionary thing because it's avoiding pain, avoiding, for example, a poisoned food, some berry mushroom or something. That news was spreading like wildfire in the community. If somebody got in trouble from some poisonous plant, it was very important to pay attention to those bad news. So evolutionarily, human beings are primed to pay attention to the danger, the problem, the negative. That's why we're hardwired for bad news. And then it just supercharges itself in a vicious spiral flywheel going into more and more negativity. But there is also this things going right all the time. The good news don't get enough attention and credit. And actually, most of the time, most of the things are going right. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here and nothing would work. No electricity, no nothing. There's so many factors which make all of the things we take for granted happen. So we have this tendency that we don't see the context where those benefits are coming from. What are all the things that are required to make all of these things move, to really make sure that we have food in the fridge and on the table? There are so many ingredients required, so many people in the supply chain which make it all possible. It's a wonderful quote by the famous Aldous Huxley. Human beings have an almost infinite capacity to take things for granted. We assume it's just like, yeah, of course, there is water coming out of my tap, and when I touch here, the light goes on. Or I even have a motion detector and the light goes on miraculously, of course. But we don't see what's required. We forget. So don't take things for granted, but be grateful for all the things which are provided, because that is in a way also the network. In this case, electric network and the portable tap water network, where there's many people working in the background to make it happen. And yeah, of course, we need to nurture it by paying the bill for our electricity and water. It's an exchange, of course. But we take it for granted and we forget about it. Your network is your strength. Your electric network is your strength. What are we going to do without electricity? So nurture it. Okay, pay the bills. Simple. Or nurture it actively and put some solar panels on your roof or balcony. Feed something back into the system. You see, it applies from basic things like utilities, infrastructure, but of course, as we discussed before, also in human connection relationship, we want to be giving back, or even initially giving. We just nurture it. We just top up our battery, to come back to the electric metaphor. We just have a storage. We build goodwill, we could say. We just, the ego would say, like, so many people owe us something because we just did so many favors to so many people. It's not that they owe us, and it's not that they necessarily have to pay us back, because like I said, they can move just city or country and they disappear, and it's like whatever. We just give for the sake of giving, just for the beauty, for the joy of being of service. But still, there's somehow, like positive credit, like some charged batteries distributed everywhere. I charged up here, I topped up there. I planted beneficial seeds and I nurture them. I regularly get back to people. I follow up with things I promise. Like in a somehow casual encounter, I might say like, yeah, I can give you a recommendation about this and that. Let me just look it up. I'll send it to you tomorrow. Follow up, follow through. So there's a certain cadence, a certain, in a way, if I exaggerate, a moral code, just intuitive commitment that if I suggest or promise something, then of course I follow up, I follow through. I have integrity. I show up. And if I cannot, then okay, I acknowledge. Sorry, I tried to, but I just couldn't. It's okay, I understand. So, see just the catch that the ego would like to jump on it as an equation of kind of like, huh, I give so much, but I'm expecting then a lot of things in return. So it's kind of, I give to you, but then you owe me. And I kind of keep track like a bookkeeper, and I get kind of rigid, tight, and in a way, like counting the details and being greedy around it. The more greedy we are, people will notice that it's kind of like, no, you're not just doing me a favor, but you're doing something because you're expecting something in return. It's kind of transactional. It's like a bargaining, like a barter. And that's also fine and works and it's fair and so on, perfectly fine. But ideally, the real beauty of it is this just being in the synergy of the community, this shared responsibility of the tribe. This is where the magic of synergy arises. This is where we can create these win-win situations, which frequently are not just bilateral, win-win, you win, I win, somehow in the bigger picture, but as described before, in the bigger picture, it ideally is a win-win-win-win-win. Everybody wins. And that's not just the people, but also the organizations, and not just the human endeavors, but also nature. Because frequently it's a win-win-win for the human beings doing the trade, the company, the customer, the staff, but then nature loses because it's built on some pollution or exploitation of natural resources which are not managed properly. So nature loses and it's not sustainable. So we need to take the bigger picture, zoom out and see all the ingredients that are required. Also, not taking the resources of nature for granted. So, nurturing our network is also nurturing our ecosystem, giving back to nature. There's some initiatives, for example, here in Bali, where you think like, no, it's tropics. There's so much rain here in the rainy season, monsoon, and so on. Sure, in our area here, yes, lush tropics, rice fields, rice paddies, terraces, amazing. But other areas of Bali, water shortage. Because of the other side of the mountain, the clouds don't move over, very little rain there. Quite widespread, surprisingly, in Bali. Or in the Midwest Corn Belt, or wherever it might be on the planet. So some areas don't get enough rain. A simple thing which can be done is collecting rainwater with the roof of my house. Okay, then maybe I need some filtering system and it requires some effort and investment, but then I don't need to take it out, pump it out from the ground where it's already little groundwater, but I'm self-sustaining just from rainwater. Then I know in Bali here, for example, but then the rainy season is so strong. Okay, my tanks are already full. I collected all my rainwater. I have already 3 huge tanks, maximum capacity, but then there's still more water in the rainy season. And then it just flows via the rivers back into the ocean. Fair enough, goes in the ocean. But I know a friend of mine who drilled not a well, but who drilled a hole in the ground, and the excess water from the rainy season, he tries to funnel into that hole into the ground to lift the water table, to refuel the groundwater, giving back. Because sometimes in the dry season, I take out water because my tanks are empty and I need to pump something out of the ground. In the rainy season, let me give back. Just one practical hands-on example of my friend here in Bali. You have your own examples where you can see, giving back. Whatever, you have your organic garbage, the peels of your fruits and vegetables, which you can, instead of throwing in the garbage, together with whatever non-recyclable stuff, put it somewhere out in nature. Have some kind of compost where, of course, the peel can serve as rich, fertile soil for new plants to grow. Giving back. Circular economy, meaning sustainable resource management, where humanity is, in an individual and collective way, trying to not just use up the resources of Mother Nature. But we need to nurture the mother. We need to give nutritious food to the mother so she can serve and nourish the kids. So contemplate examples in your own life. Please share them below in the comments so other people can get inspired. How did you give back? What is your way of putting rainwater back into the ground? How do you give back to Mother Nature or to your network? Let's get inspired and feel the synergy in our community here, which, yes, is a digital community and we don't watch the videos together, but still we're in this together. Just yesterday, I was, for example, speaking to a graduate of our yoga teacher training who's setting up a scholarship program. Sarah from the UK is developing a platform, like a trust fund, where she's gathering in a fundraiser donations for disadvantaged people to be able to take our yoga teacher training. We give a scholarship and discount, reducing the price, and some donations from the community make life-changing yoga education accessible to people in need. For example, 3-4 days ago, we started a conversation with a woman in Australia. She was texting us saying like, oh, I would love to do your meditation teacher training. It looks so amazing. But to be honest, I have 5 kids, and surprisingly, I just lost my job and we had to move out of the apartment and we live in some shelter somewhere. But this meditation teacher training, I feel it could really make a difference in my life. And then, of course, we're coming to some agreement which is realistic for her, and we reduce the price. Can you do it? Nah, it's too much. And then I understand, of course, like, where should you get the money from? Okay, then let's reduce the price even more and even more. Make it accessible. So giving back. We regularly give scholarships also to people in disadvantaged countries, people fleeing the Ukraine war, so many examples. So giving back to the community in this way or another, being of service. So please share your example, your anecdotes, your heroic contributions and efforts to your community so we can get inspired. So please look in the comments down below and try to find some inspiration there. And maybe you're among the early ones to comment, then contemplate and try to contribute something there so other people can get uplifted, and together we rise and go from strength to strength despite of the challenges and difficulties that we are confronted with. Your network is your strength. Nurture it. Give back, especially in the good times when it's easier to give. Be of service. Be a human being who joyfully provides. Live with an open heart and trust in that process of giving and sharing. There's so much beauty in it, so much fulfillment. It's not a coincidence that it's written in the Bible that giving is more sacred than taking. There's a certain joy in service. Cultivate that. Maybe you have lost it. It's okay. Normal in our individualized, ego-centered, isolated modern lifestyle. But try to go back to the roots of this family, clan, tribe, village. It's sometimes called the global village. Think global, see the problems of global warming, pollution, this, that. Think global, but act local. For decades, this has been a motto of the alternative conscious movement. Act local in your community. Do what you can do. Share some breathing exercises with somebody in need. Help somebody out. It's the attitude of karma yoga, actually. The selfless service of just giving. Dropping our ego in the process. And somehow it nurtures us back. Frequently, people with more financial wealth and possibilities, rich people, are not necessarily more happy and fulfilled. Because the consumer society of affording myself the best this and that, it wears off quickly. And there's something, in a way, how when people have the means, they enjoy then even more to give back. And there's a joy in then spreading their wealth. So don't just negatively point your finger at the rich. Because If they are in greed, they're also unhappy there. But there's wonderful examples of people who commit to give their money back. And you can think of Bill Gates, what you want, and I understand your concerns and doubts, and yes, 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 yes. But this founder of Microsoft committed, together with Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors and billionaires of all times, to give away basically all of the wealth which they accumulated over their lifetime, give it to charity. And yes, we can question, like, oh, maybe it's a questionable charity that I don't agree with, and I understand that you have your doubts about this and that. But, like, wow, accumulating tens of billions, hundreds of billions, and then not just keeping it as a heritage for my family, but passing it on, somehow distributing it. And again, we might not agree with everything, but that's a move. Am I ready in my testament and last will to give 20, 30, 50% or more, or 100% of my leftover to charity? If I'm not doing this, how can I blame somebody else? Like, oh, they're only donating 70% of their life's wealth to charity. They should give more. They have so much. No, that's just blaming others, pointing fingers. We always got to lead with good example ourselves. And then we nurture, we give, even in our lifetime. We don't need to wait till we're dead. Just giving back. So many more examples could be given, but I hope you got a flavor of this mutual synergy, of this shared endeavor, of win-win, of going from strength to strength together despite of the obstacles, making it a win-win-win situation for all people involved and Mother Nature. And as they do in Bali, even the spiritual economy. In Bali, it is always needs to be a balance between humans, nature, and the spiritual realm. Everybody needs to win in the equation. So open your mind also into those areas. I leave it as such for now, and I encourage you to contemplate, but then not just think about it, but see where you can contribute in the small ways. I remember a bumper sticker when we were teaching a meditation retreat in Sweden some 12 years ago. The bumper sticker was having a very simple, strong message. Commit random acts of kindness. So don't commit murder, but commit to acts of kindness, of service. And then the interesting term in the equation, random. Commit random acts of kindness. Surprise somebody else and even surprise yourself. Step out of your way. Make a difference. Smile as you say to a hello to a stranger, and just give them a hand. Surprise them and yourself. Enjoy this wonderful journey of mutual synergy and shared upliftment. I trust that we will keep this wisdom in motion and we celebrate in the spirit of yoga. Namaste.